I was reading on your biography. It said something about a car. Like, is that a true? A car hit you on a curb and it changed your life forever?
Yeah, it's a true story. I was in Stratford-upon-Avon, like a little market town where Shakespeare was born.
Yeah.
It was like a cold autumn day, and I walked into Woolworths, which was obviously used to be a famous shop. It doesn't exist anymore. But I walked in, and all of a sudden there was like this massive bang. People thought it was like some type of bomb attack, because it was that loud. I don't really remember much, but what happened was a car driver lost control and drove over the street and into the shop. And when I woke up under the car with the tire burning on my leg, basically nearly lost my life. And it was just like, it was just, I confronted the ultimate disruption, which was my own mortality. And it was during that time that, so I was in hospital for about 3 months, and I used to work in advertising. So big global brands, Versace and Saatchi. But, when you're out of the building, out of the office, you have lots of time to reflect. It really got me to get, very vulnerable and very honest about who I was and who I wanted to be. And was I aligned with my values? And I realized that I just couldn't work in advertising anymore, selling brands and selling products that it's got lots of sugar, for example. So that I kind of reinvented myself and completed an MBA at London Business School.
Yeah.
And then this is about 20 years ago, by the way, in terms of a timeline. And then since then, I've been focusing on different 3 buckets really. Bucket 1 is lecturing, entrepreneur mentor at London Business School and MIT. And then bucket number 2 is all about thought leadership and research. So I have a blog with Thinkers 50, and I get regular press with The Economist, for example, Forbes. That's all about the future of work, future of leadership.
Yeah.
And then bucket number 3 is the bucket I love most, which is meeting people like you, meeting different people around the world to talk about personal development and how to energize ourselves, how to live our purpose.
Wow. Okay. before that accident, then who were you as a person? Like, you say that you're more, what you wanted wasn't aligned. Like, who are you as a person before that?
Well, I think before, there was a kind of, I think we're constantly, I call it, live your life like a lobster. We need to be in this perpetual state of beta. And sometimes you need to step out of old shoes in order to grow. And, the person
So you were stagnant, maybe, like you were kind of settled?
I was very alive. I mean, Saatchi was a great place to work, very creative. We had sleeping pods in the 90s before Google. And we had a free bar before Google. And it was a very nice existence, working with fantastic clients, fantastic people. But I guess there was something missing, and it was to do with that, how much are you living your personal purpose? And I think when you're working for any type of organization, sometimes we have to water that purpose down a bit. If we're lucky enough, we can align our purpose with the company's purpose. But I guess that had diverged a little bit, and I wasn't exactly where I wanted to be anymore. But I didn't really realize that until I confronted death. I'm not saying that we have to confront death in order to live our purpose.
It's usually
you need a shake-up.
Yeah, it's usually some kind of event happens that triggers.
Could be losing. It could be separating from a partner, moving home, moving to a different country. Just shifting something can make you more deliberate and self-aware about that. I think one of the key messages I talk about in my books is kind of making sure that we live our lives with intention in a more deliberate way. And and that means being more vulnerable, being more open as well.
I read also, it was on my speaker's page, I think, they advertise you as an outspoken person.
Wow.
How did you get that? Like, have you always been a kind of extroverted, out there person? Because like I was, when I read that, I'm like, I can relate. I'm very outspoken myself. So, but how did you get that description?
I think it's such a good question. I mean, there was no linear path there. I grew up as a very shy person, actually.
Okay.
I think it was only when I went to university and left home and lived in a different environment, and then started with Saatchi, and then obviously that kind of accelerated a kind of different perspective, which was to be more more forthright, talk about inconvenient truths, be more provocative, be more irreverent with the status quo. And I think Saatchi probably helped a lot with that, because it was all about pitching ideas and trying to be original and shaking up the status quo and shaking up business as usual. We used to call it business as unusual.
Okay.
So I think that really helped. And then I think obviously the accident and then trying to navigate and create my own path required a lot of courage, that Sisu Viking spirit, to just jump into the unknown. And so I think it is like a decision or muscle, and you strengthen it through daily practice.
So how did you become a speaker? Were you a speaker before when you advertised, or that happened after the thing? How's the speaker story go?
So the speaker story, I think, started again around the time that I went to university and then joined Saatchi, because it was all about pitching and presenting your ideas. Another saying we had was life's a pitch. And actually, you're always pitching yourself, even when you don't realize it. And so I think that's when it started. But I think so. Yeah, that's when it actually started. And then over time, I started to get invited to speak at other companies. So it was very kind of organic. Again, it wasn't a sort of linear plan that I woke up one day and I was a speaker. It happened in a very organic way. But I guess the last 15 years has been more it became more professionalized, as in I started getting paid to do it.
Yeah. And then I guess you've just grown as you've gone on.
Exactly. So what tends to happen is you get word of mouth recommendations. Somebody will read an article or an interview. I have a monthly show on BBC Radio.
Okay.
Yeah, so I share some links for that. So every month I talk about a kind of workplace issue. It could be productivity hacks. It could be attention hacks. So one of my messages at the moment is, data's not the new oil. Attention is the new oil. And this idea that our attention spans are under attack, and how can we kind of protect our attention and attack this kind of always on culture. So every month at the BBC, I talk about a workplace issue and kind of give really practical hacks to the listeners to solve those challenges.
Can you tell me a little bit more about this attention thing?
I mean, look, so basically 8 hours is 480 minutes. 80 years of age is like 980 months. So life is actually very short, first of all. And attention, we tend to look at attention as unlimited, but attention's actually very limited, very scarce. And the work of Cal Newport, he's a MIT thinker focusing on the difference between deep work and shallow work. And his research has shown that over the last 15, 20 years, kind of parallel to the internet, our kind of focus has become steadily more shallow, and the ability to kind of concentrate and focus on deep work has become more and more tricky, to the point where we interrupt ourselves. Every kind of couple of minutes, well, we want to give ourselves a little dopamine hit. Who's emailed me? Who's texted me? Who's WhatsApped me? Who's Instagrammed me? So we're kind of drowning in data and drowning in social media. And so these attention spans really are precious. They need to be protected. We need to invest in them. We need to understand the difference between deep work and shallow work, rather than just busy work. And I talk about inner attention. So really going deep dive into yourself, meditation, walking, practicing deliberate movements, slowing down, stepping out of the building, stepping out of the office. So inner attention, and you've got to invest in that. It's not unlimited, otherwise you burn out. So inner attention. I talk about other attention. So looking about, building, focusing on people around you, parents, family, friends, colleagues, and again being 100% in the room, being fully present. And then finally, I talk about outer attention, which is, what are the trends in the world that excite you? What are the trends in the world that scare you? What's new? What's not just the new thing? What's the next thing? Being passionately curious, that keeps us alive as well.
Is there some personal story or background to how did you get into this attention? Because that's fascinating when you think about it, that it's something so simple and straightforward, and now it's a huge topic because we can't manage the basics.
I think it goes back to this accident, that this driver who drove into the shop, he lost his attention for like half a second.
Okay.
And so that kind of activated the curiosity around that at a very early age. And then, I got to speak to a doctor a couple of years ago, and he said the number of selfie-related accidents. He said one, it's a new type of accident. Literally, people walking off cliffs. There was a story of a lady in Canada hiking. She was trying to take the perfect selfie of a grizzly bear, which was about 200 yards away. And slowly, this bear came closer and closer. And it's a true story. The final photo, and it's the perfect Instagram photo, is of the grizzly bear right behind her. She's smiling. And then that was the last photo, and she got killed. These are true stories. And it got me thinking, actually, this is a massive problem now. Selfie-related accidents, people, 2 out of 5 people reporting burnout or at risk of burnout, record levels of pressure at work. And so this sort of well-being and attention, I think it's such an important leadership resource now that we need to protect and invest in, but no one's really talking about it. People keep, the hype and hysteria seems to be all about technology and what's new and digital and disruption and AI. And
I think we should be going back to basics, basically.
Exactly. And actually, we need to go further. We need to really kind of hit the restart, reassess and reaffirm we are human beings, not human doings.
I think I get the sense that many of your topics that you talk about, they relate back to that accident. Yeah.
It's exactly. So
can you relate the other ones? Like how did they come from there?
Yes, absolutely. So I think there's like 3 big themes I speak about, which relate to the accident, but also the kind of like last 25 years of working with different types of companies, different cultures, different people. And so the one common thread for all of them is scaling a humanity first future. So this idea that I think a lot of the world has focused on value extraction and efficiency and doing things right. And I think we're at this new inflection point now. We're moving from command and control to care and co-creation. It's an opportunity to hit renewal on empathy and kindness and this humanity first future rather than just a digital first future. So that's all my talks and all my thought leadership is kind of, if there was one singular angle, it's how do we scale more human, more empathy, more imagination, more compassion, and that's what really drives me. And it comes back to that moment in time where I think when you're confronted with your own mortality, you realize, it kind of reaffirms the importance of that and the fragility of that.
I think it sounds like, they're all about wanting to be alive because it's emotions and all that.
Exactly. I mean, a big question I ask in my keynotes and in my interactions is, think about your last month at work. How alive do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? You're going to know in your heart straight away. It's a truth teller. Are you a 10? Brilliant. Are you a 3? I mean, the reality is most people are below 5. And if you scale that around 3 billion people working on the planet, I know from the research that a lot of people are searching for that purpose.
Yeah. It's very fascinating. Wow. Okay. I can see that obviously when you do your speeches, you have that energy that wakes the audience alive, clearly.
It's, energy breeds energy. So I think it's absolutely key. And, what I'd love to do as well, by the way, is I'll have to send you a copy of my new book.
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah. It came out about 5 months ago.
Oh, wow.
It's been shortlisted by the Financial Times as Business Book of the Year 2021. The winner will be announced in May. So
congratulations on that, though.
Thank you so much. I'm on the final kind of 3 shortlist. But I mean, anyway, whether that happens or not, that's fine. It's a very practical book, and it talks about different mindsets to scale for yourself. So it's a bold mindset, taking bold leaps into the future. And then the second mindset is brave. So it's all about choosing courage over comfort. And then the final mindset is all about going beyond your limits. So I'd love to send you a copy of that because that really captures everything.
I would love to read that. Thank you. I'd love to ask you what's been your favorite speech or moment? Like, do you interact with the audience? Like, do you do something? What's your thing with your speeches?
I love connection. I love interacting with audiences. So, whether it's getting them to do some type of 700 people in the room, get them to do a hackathon straight away together on purpose, on creativity or on courage, something to make them feel more alive, to excite their senses, but also give them some really concrete takeaways, to get them thinking differently and to show that they can do that immediately. So yeah, I mean, I've had people come onto the stage and have a hug. Yeah, it depends on the culture. So that's happened before. I've gone down onto the floor and connected with people as well.
Nice.
Yeah, so I can't think of specific moments, but it's over the last 20 years, a lot of things have happened like that. And sometimes just the connection after the speech as well is really cool. And also getting feedback or hearing stories afterwards of the talk turning into action, or the knowing turning into doing. So building up communities. I've built up some communities on different social media over the last 10 years. And so, on the communities that I have, for example, I run a podcast show. It's called Hack the Future. And it's got about 15,000 followers around the world. And every month I interview some really cool people. Recently I interviewed Mo Gaudat, who's used to be the chief business officer at Google.
Okay.
And really cool guy. He's written a book called How to Scale Happiness.
Okay.
And so I interviewed him. I interviewed a Lord from the House of Lords,
Nice.
David Carter.
Very cool.
I interviewed a lady recently, the CEO of Youth Sports Trust, which is one of the world's biggest charities focusing on well-being. So with that, that's a really great platform. Meeting thinkers and doers. And interacting with them as well. I'll send you the link to that as well.
Yes, of course. So you like to be part of communities then? Yeah.
Definitely. I think it's really important. Who's in your posse? Have different types of posses. So a zeitgeist, big ideas posse, work posse, strategic one.
Because I was wondering, because I work with this community inside my speaker, so it's we have public speakers there, and then we have public speaking enthusiasts. So I was wondering, would you want to join it if I send you an invite to that?
Yes, exactly. I'd love to contribute.
And then I have another idea, because next Thursday we started doing these open mics that have become quite popular now. So we have like 4 people get to do a 5-minute speech, then the audience gets to give feedback. If you're available next Thursday, it's finish time. It's 5:30 to 7, so I think you're an hour ahead. You're an hour behind me, I think.
I'll check.
Yeah, if you
I can check. I think that I'm actually speaking to the Finland team.
Okay.
Next week.
Okie dokie. Because we have.
Yeah. I'll check and come back quickly on that. So it's next Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Because if having another professional speaker there to give people a feedback, I mean, they would adore that. That'd be awesome. We have Andre, who's the lead in the community, but I think you'll be you're with your energy. Oh my God, that'd be awesome.
Is this so? Let me get it straight. So who is the audience?
They are the community members, but we're going to expand it now, and we're going to start advertising it on LinkedIn so that outsiders can also come join it. But it's mainly the community members. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think those sorts of things are really valuable, and we're all kind of trying to get better, but we've all got our gremlins, our inner critic, our blind spots. So that's very close to my heart. So I'll check that date and time for you.
Yeah. What would you? I like to ask this to everyone I talk to. What piece of advice would you give to someone who's aspiring to be a public speaker?
Manage glossophobia. Glossophobia is Latin for anxiety of the tongue. Basically, we all suffer from glossophobia.
Okay.
I even saw somebody fall off a stage just before the pandemic. They were getting closer and closer to the edge of the stage. They fell off. They were swearing when they hit the floor. half the audience laughed. Half the audience were quiet. But what the presenter did was really cool. And I think it really is the essence of good presenting, which is you can't control what happens. Lights might go off, you might lose connection, your mind might go blank, but you can always choose how you respond to the event. You can always choose to be resilient and bounce back and bounce forward.
Yeah.
He could have chosen to stay on the floor, but he didn't. He stood up and he limped back on the stage. and got a standing ovation. And so what I'd say to, my key message would be, every time you speak is a learning opportunity. Don't waste it.
I love it. I think you had that prepared. Why do you not have more about your story with this accident? And you only have the one sentence there for me. So why don't you have more? I mean, like I plan on writing about you for our newsletter that I send out tomorrow. Yes. And I could just see a really good article from that. And there's so much of that. Why don't you have more on it?
Well, it's a good question. The answer is there is a lot more in the book.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot more in the book about what happened there, and the kind of things that I drew from that experience that I think are really useful, universal life lessons for all of us. That this idea that life is so precious, don't waste it, and all the things that we can do to scale what makes, achieve our full potential and be more alive. That's what it's all about.
I love it. Okay, so that's your teaser. Then you got to get the book.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. That's very cool. Have you been in Finland?
Yes, I have. So I got invited to speak in Finland about 3 years ago by the mayor of Helsinki.
Okay.
And it was a really cool one-day hackathon. There's about 100 people in the audience, CEOs, but also startups and also students. Nobody had any nobody had their job titles on to kind of remove status. And I did the opening kind of keynote on how to thrive in the age of disruption. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. So that was a great experience. It was probably about 3 years ago now.
Okay.
I've lived in Sweden, by the way, as well. I lived in Sweden for about 6 months.
Okay.
Stockholm, which I really enjoyed.
Nice. Cool. What's your favorite country?
God, that's a tricky one because everywhere I go, I fall in love with it. I was in Iceland last year before the pandemic, and I loved Reykjavik, and Marrakesh is beautiful, and so I can't say one place. They've all got their unique charm. Yeah. How about you?
Mine is Japan. I love Japan.
Japan's on my bucket list. I was meant to go to Japan to speak, and then the pandemic hit. Oh. But I'd love to go to Japan. The culture, the people, the food. Did you stay in Tokyo?
Yes, I've been in Tokyo 3 times, and I've also been in Nagoya.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm 100% with you on Japan.
Aren't you doing more virtual events then? I mean, because we're moving virtual now, so.
Lots of virtual events. Over the last couple of weeks, MIT, Kellogg's Europe, Volkswagen, Ubisoft. I love obviously the real human interaction, but it's also great you can do this all virtually now.